There we go. All right, resuming. Um, Absolutely nothing has happened. Probably because I disconnected. Um, yeah, I've probably disconnected and have lost the current status of the game. Let's see if I can't get it refreshed. Stutzman. Oh, come on, internet. Stutzman Nick. AFE. There we go. So let's see here. I got disconnected here. He played out a Silvertooth and reaped with it. And that was all that happened since then. Tom is called Brobnar and thrown down a Vanguard Chieftain, which and that confirms my theory that Gengar Chieftain, or you cannot fight with the Giant Sloth without fulfilling its ability, even if a card says you can fight with the creature. Because he played the Gengar Chieftain next to the Giant Sloth and was not able to fight. Played out a second Gengar Chieftain to fight with the first, and that's what we see how he killed off the Eater of the Dead. Then reaps with Headhunter and reaps with Bumpsy, putting himself at 10 Amber, conceding that he cannot stop Stutzman Nick from forging his second key when Stutzman Nick is sitting on 14 Amber. So with the 2 damage Brobnar creatures through the Iron Obelisk, Stutzman Nick has to pay 8 to forge his key, putting him at 6. But he does have his second key forged. Now, can he take enough Amber away from Tom to get him back below the 6 that is currently the cost of the key? Calls Dis. And reaps with Schuler and Tentacus. And plays out a second Toxin. Or that he's shuffled his discard. That's very possibly the exact same Toxin. And then uses the Dominator Bauble, presumably to activate Big Twig and reap with Big Twig. No. He makes either a misclick or just misunderstands, but tries to use the Dominator Bauble to use Toxin. Since Toxin is exhausted, you cannot use him. It would have been trying to use Big Twig, would have been the correct play there. So I'm going to assume that's a misclick at this level of play. But when a creature is exhausted, you cannot use it even if you have something like Dominator Bauble that says use a friendly creature. Because to use something, you must exhaust it. Dominator Bauble is more for letting you use out of faction creatures. Now, if it said ready and use, it would be a different story. Much like the Gauntlet command says ready and fight. Because you can't ready it, it cannot be used. But Poltergeist does blow up the Iron Obelisk, so Stutzman Nick's 9 keys are now a real threat of ending the game here. Since the Iron Obelisk is gone, his keys only cost 6. Tom pulls out a bait and switch, does manage to forge his second key there, and steals 3 from Stutzman Nick, which is thus far insufficient, but now only 1 Ember stands between Tom and having enough to continue the game and try to forge his third key. He plays out 3 Shadows creatures. Unfortunately, none of them steal Amber on play, i.e. none of them are an Urchin or a Magda the Rat. And Tom is sitting here cursing the day because he's got enough Amber to forge his third key, but no way to stop Stutzman Nick from getting his third key. That Poltergeist was a huge play there. Without Poltergeist, Stutzman Nick does not forge his key right here, and at that point, it's quite possibly up to Tom for the victory. But that's it. Stutzman Nick wins this game, and Tom drops out of the tournament because this is a single elimination tournament. Now, let us go and find... Jupiter is out. Jupiter has been beaten by Junior Blevins. Go see if we can find the Viper Junior Blevins game. Think. Junior Blevins. Right, Crucible has problems when spectating password games. It's Bevins, not Blevins. Password is KFE, and watch. So here we have Viper versus Junior Bevins. Viper's on a Dis Shadows Untamed deck. We see that he opened. I'm pretty certain that he took first turn and played and dropped a Dominator Bauble, and that is in fact what he did. Dominator Bauble is an excellent first turn play. You call Dis, drop Dominator Bauble, and then turn around and play out a different faction for your second one, and then from that point on, you always have the ability to use an off-faction card. We see Junior Bevins basically just setting up for the future, gaining an Ember off of the punch, playing Smash that has to unfortunately stun itself because it's the only creature on the board. The latest rulings from the rulebook that came out a couple weeks ago do state that that you can target a stunned creature for stunning, it just has no effect. So if there had been any other creature on the board, even if it was stunned, Smash could have hit it. But as it stood, Smash had to hit himself. And of course, the Mighty Javelin is in play. Now we look at Viper and using... Junior Bevins gained 2 Amber. Using Urchin to reduce him to 1, and then the Ghostly Hand lets him steal both of Junior Bevins' Ember and get 2 of his own, putting him at 4, giving him a decent enough start to this match. We see Junior Bevins playing a Fogify and preventing combat on the next turn. That was probably more for the Amber than the effect, because there's not much in the way of threats in combat from a single Urchin. And then playing Sloppy Lab Work. Sloppy Lab Work is a favorite of mine. It lets you cycle through your deck much faster by letting you archive a card and discard a card. And of course, what's archived and discard does not have to be of the active house logos when it is played. Then we see Junior Bevins dropping a Help from Your Future Self, gain an Ember, and then you search your deck for a Time Traveler and put it into your hand. Since it's the logos, you should also be able to immediately play said Time Traveler. That always results in 2 Amber, 1 for the action and 1 for the creature. And then drawing 2 cards, which can draw you more logos, of course, and continue your turn. It is a way of working with the library access combo, since Help from Your Future Self does shuffle your discard into your deck. I don't see that happening. Didn't see that happening that turn. That doesn't mean it is not an option. Let me pop over here for a second and take a look. Yes, there is a library access in this deck. With the Time Traveler, that is a way to get library access back into your deck after playing it, to be able to play it multiple times in a turn. It's not the most powerful, reliable way, because it's just shuffled into your deck. It's not put on top of your deck or made the only thing in your deck like Reverse Time would do, or pulled back with the Nepentine Seed. We see Viper playing a deck very near and dear to my heart. This is very similar to what I think is my strongest deck. This is Ruther the Industrial, but he drops a Key to Dis, throws a Mind Barb to force, in this case, Anger out, and calls Untamed for the Control the Weak faction. So Junior Bevins has no choice but to call Untamed. And we see that he has a Dust Imp in play. So that's just a constant reap threat. Or if something happens to kill it, he gets 2 Amber. And Junior Bevins is commenting that he's never seen Key to Dis. And Viper is agreeing that it is a better version of Gateway to Dis. I have seen this discussed many times because I'm curious about it. I personally like Key to Dis better than Gateway to Dis because you don't have it clogging up your hand forever. You play it, and yes, there's a couple of counters because you played it, but you don't have it sitting in your hand waiting for an opportune moment. Gateway to Dis, it acts as a chain before you play it if you are holding it for the opportune time, and then it gives you 3 chains after you play it. So it hurts you coming and going unless you draw it at just the perfect moments. Key to Dis, you don't have that problem. You just are telegraphing things a little bit. And it, more than Gateway to Dis, warps how the game plays. So, we have Junior Bevins calling Untamed again. This time completely voluntarily. Oh, I'm sorry. That's I'm on the wrong player turn. Viper calls Untamed. Drops out a big twig and an Epithene Seed. This deck looks very familiar. Slightly different than my favorite, my personal best deck, but looks very, very familiar. Let's see. Played the Regrowth. They didn't say what he picked up with Regrowth. Oddly, probably because he had no creatures in his discard. Regrowth can only target creatures, unlike say the Witch of the Eye. And we see 2 Way of the Bears coming down on Big Twig, meaning if he ever were to attack with Big Twig, which is kind of laughable, it would do 4 damage before attacking. The reason it's kind of laughable is Big Twig can only fight stun creatures. I almost might have played those 2 things on the Urchin and let Urchin just murder things that have less than 3 or less than 4 power. 4 or less power. So anytime he called Shadows, he could fight with the Urchin and say, murder the Time Traveler and still live, because Assault is prior to combat damage. We see Junior Bevins calling Brobnar and then punching Big Twig for 3, throwing out Looter Goblin, which is a fun little creature that has elusive. And when you reap with him, anytime you gain an for the rest of the turn, you gain an amber anytime a creature is destroyed. So it's loot the bodies on a creature with a reap effect. Tireless Crocag is just a murdering fiend. He can only fight. He belongs to he's treated as though he's in every active house. And if you ever manage to get rid of all of your opponent's creatures, he just dies. And we see 2 Crumps, which are Brobnar's Amber control. After killing a creature with Crump, its controller loses an Amber. And we see Viper choosing pretty wisely to use that Key to Dis to wipe the board. And then plays out a Bruno, old Bruno to capture 3. An Urchin to steal 1, sitting on 7 Amber now. Oh, and then Ghostly Hand to, since his opponent's at exactly 1, steal 2 more. That is 2 Ghostly Hands in this deck. That's quite nice. With enough other Amber control to get them down to 1 to steal it all. Very, very nice. So Viper is sitting on 10, already has his first key forged. Junior Bevins is probably in a bit of pain right now. It's going to be hard to come back unless he pulls off some sort of crazy library access turn, which I wouldn't put past him, but we see Junior Bevins throw out a Fogify just for the Ember, a Mother to get an extra card during his draw step, and needs a better response than that, or Viper is going to have his second key. Floppy lab work that's going to cycle through more of the deck. Gotta wait for him to choose what to archive and what to throw away. With 3 cards in hand, that's going to mean that he gets to draw 5 unless he still has a Logos card yet to play. And he chose to discard Titan Mechanic. I find that very odd. Junior Bevins uses Sloppy Lab Work to archive a card and discard Titan Mechanic. He was on a Logos turn, so I don't know why you would discard Titan Mechanic rather than play it. I'm not sure what Junior Bevins was going for with that play. It seems very odd to me. I don't know his hand and what he archived, obviously. He could be trying to pull off some sort of... No, I honestly don't know what he's trying to do. We will have to wait and see if it comes to fruition. In the meantime, Viper murders the creature with or hits Mother with Gongoozle, which isn't enough to kill it, causing the full moon discard that you see there. And he uses Fear to bounce it back to the hand, and Control the Weak to force him to play Untamed. I don't know, after that last turn, I'm going to force him to play Logos again. But he cycled through so much of his deck last turn, or so much of his hand, having played 5 of the cards, or gotten rid of 5 of the cards, you have no way of knowing what he's least likely to have in his hand except by analyzing what's in his discard. And given there are only 2 Untamed cards in the discard, it's likely that he has quite a bit of Untamed in his hand. So I think that was a bad choice for Control the Weak. I think calling Brobnar probably would have been best, because there's 3, 7, 8. So he could have at most had 4 cards in hand that are Brobnar. And with 20 of the cards currently unaccounted for, it's very unlikely he had all 4 of his Brobnar cards in hand. And we see a Dust Pixie and 2 enhancements coming down on it to get 4 Ember. And then saying good game, passing the turn, and letting Viper get his 3rd key. Good game, you two. Yeah, Junior Bevins is saying that he couldn't get his deck to cycle the way he expects it to. That seems not unreasonable. Alright. Let's hop out of the game and go find another match on this tournament. As a reminder, the Keyforge events tournaments are sponsored by Orbits, and I've already forgotten the other one because it's in my, there we go, by Orbits. Tonight's event is sponsored by Orbits, Tabletop Legion, and Burger Tokens. I believe tonight's event is actually being sponsored by Keyforge Events himself and his personal website, which is somewhere in here. I really can't find it. Any event. If you have not joined the Keyforge Discord server for Keyforge events, let's see if I can post an invite key in the channel. Invite people. There we go. Control C. I will be putting this in both my Twitch and in my YouTube profiles. I realize that the people that are in here probably already know about it, but if not, that is to a Discord server that orchestrates and sponsors events and tournaments online, such as this one. Let us go look at this.